the CTF. And then section three is really focusing on some specific techniques and then some Q&A. So I think it kind of gets more and more interesting as we progress, hopefully for you. But that's what it looks like. Some quick housekeeping. So interaction. This is, I think you have the capabilities to just shout out in this Zoom session. It used to be a webinar, so you didn't. And I don't mind if you do, actually, but you can also chat. So one of the things, just to keep it orderly, it's nice in the chat, I find. So if you have a question, I'm looking at the chat. Nice, and the food is awesome. Tokyo, never been to Tokyo. That's on my list. So, all right, I got to keep going. Otherwise, I'm going to run out of time here. A quick how do you do? So it's nice to know who's talking to you about this sort of stuff, right? So my name's Robert. I'm the founder of Trace Labs. I say founder, I had this idea, but then the community really came in and really helped make that idea into a nonprofit organization that we are today, right? And so I say founder very carefully because I have a lot of ideas, most of them bad. This one seemed to be pretty good, but it was really the volunteers that came forward. And right now, we've just got such a fantastic level of leadership in the organization and volunteers in the community that are making this work, right? And there's so many reasons why it could have gone off the rails and not worked, but it's really people like yourselves, our leadership, and everything else, the teams that we have now that are making this work. So, but I do search and rescue. So on the west coast of Canada, if you get lost, I might be one of the people that come out looking for you. These are some of the pictures of that. Top left is me in Australia. I walked into my hotel room in Australia, and that was the picture I saw. So I was on the news. Really, really cool event we did there. That's me in the helicopter doing search and rescue. That's me in Riga, Latvia, doing a presentation on Trace Labs. And that's me in the backcountry in Canada as well. So yeah, I get to do a lot of a lot of things that I feel very lucky to do. International security and technology is kind of my day job, so I work with global teams around the world for that. So it's a bit of a blend of this search and rescue and information security put together is what helped me with Trace Labs. 2020. Oh, look at that, a typo right there. I'm still living in the past with this 2025. I talk about this year and I keep saying 2025, so I got to fix that. My apologies. Hopefully that's the only mistake. Massive change in our organization. If you haven't noticed, and I keep mentioning this, we have some fantastic leadership in the organization that is making us go to places we've never been before in a really good way, right? So things are getting formalized, things are getting fixed, new stuff is coming out. It's just, I can't say enough good things about the people that are leading the organization right now, right? And, and it's the team leads, the members of these teams now that are working hard to deliver for you a fantastic experience. So that's the massive change that I'm talking about. Our next CTF is February 21st. We have a lot of new components in the CTF, right? A lot of new technologies that are going to make that experience even better. I mean, it's sold out in hours before, but now with the changes and improvements that the teams are making, I can't imagine what it's going to be like. So so yeah, look forward to that. Community-driven functions, local instance OSINT CTFs in your town. If you have interest in that, reach out to me. We'll get the team together to take a look at that. We have a lot of interest from law enforcement, from universities and other entities, partnerships and events. We have many new sponsors now. It's just, to me, it's amazing how many prizes we now have in the CTF. So I don't remember the last count, but it was teams in the future. But that was the big change over 2025 and what we're seeing now in 2026. If you haven't met them yet, to the details of our organization. So we're a nonprofit. None of us take salary. Nobody earns a wage. And I think that's really important. When we first started Trace Labs, that was a big debate on what's the organization going to look like. And I think that was the right decision. We're an OSINT community driven, so that means everybody's volunteer, people come in, they help out. And we're really one of the biggest organizations, if not the biggest OSINT organization that I've seen out there, especially a nonprofit, right? We're a non-theoretical CTF. This is really important, right, to understand, is that we're helping law enforcement find real missing persons. And I think that's the thing that people kind of stop and go, whoa, wait a minute, these are real missing persons? Yeah. And so a lot of CTFs are theoretical, and there's nothing wrong with that. Theoretical CTFs are the bread and butter of our industry, and they work great. They're a great teaching tool. But this is slightly different, right? So since it's non-theoretical, we're actually helping law enforcement find these missing persons by crowdsourcing the OSINT that you collect during the CTF. And we give them that package, that information after the event. And so we're utilizing all of your energy and hard work to do something really incredible, right? Which is great. And we don't know the things that you will find. We don't know the answers you will find out there. And so we have what we call coaches in the background that validate all the incoming intel that you collect. So it's different than a theoretical that way, right? We have that additional overhead that we need to do. And we're really partnering with what I call the hacker community, or information security and law enforcement, which is kind of a novel thing, right? We're bringing those two communities together, which historically have not really come together well. And so I'm really proud of our organization for doing that. And then finally, we're not cyber sleuths. So if you're referring to yourself as a cyber sleuth, or somebody refers to you as that, I would try to shy away from that, because it's not what law enforcement is looking for, right? And it's not really for your career healthy either, right? So I would instead advise to market yourself as an intelligence operator, because that's really what we're doing here. We're not guessing, we're not theorizing, we're not sleuthing, right? There's a Netflix show, Don't F with Cats. We're not doing that, right? That's a very unhealthy, very unsafe approach. We're strictly looking at the facts, we're looking at the intelligence that we find online, and then putting that together in a concise report for law enforcement. So two different things, and so it's very important to think about that, not only for safe operations for everyone, but also for your potential career and things like that as well, right? Our mission. So our mission statement is to accelerate the family reunification of missing persons by supporting law enforcement through crowdsourcing of open source intelligence, what we refer to as OSINT for short. I think that, I talked about that. And the components of that, what makes that special is, we're able to solve problems at scale as it relates to missing persons, right? And coming from a search and rescue background, I always use the phrase convergent volunteers. So we're one of the first organizations, I think probably the first, to safely utilize the convergent volunteers. And so what I mean by that is, in search and rescue, I would often have friends and family of the missing person come up to the van or the command vehicle and say, hey, I want to go into the woods and help find that person. And we'd say, no, please don't do that, because we knew they would probably get either lost and or hurt, right? And then it would take a bunch of our resources to go pull them out, and then we're diverted from our primary task, right? Which is not good. And so in one of the biggest searches we did, the Tyler Wright search in BC, Canada, there was a lot of helicopter activity that filmed the forest, and we would have volunteers review that footage. And that was kind of the idea of, you can crowdsource some of this if you can do it safely and utilize those people that want to help. And so that's what we've done here, right? We've done it, the way our model is set up is to make sure it's very safe and high value, and so we can utilize those convergent volunteers. And then, much like sort of cloud resources, right? If you're familiar with utilizing the cloud resources, like AWS or something like that, we have this elasticity. So on demand, we can spool up, which is really cool. And that's what we do in our CTF, right? We bring hundreds of people together. And low cost, low risk for law enforcement. And that's really what they look at, right? Like, they don't want to associate with any sort of vigilante group or anything like that, which we see quite a bit of on the internet, right? We don't go after the bad guys on purpose, right? Our mission and our scope is really refined to make sure all of you stay safe, and then also we're providing value to law enforcement. Anything outside of that, law enforcement will just say, no thanks, right? I talked to so many law enforcement people to help develop this this formula, right? So, and then our scope limited to open source intelligence and not alerting the missing person or friends, family of the missing person, right? They're already having their worst day. The last thing they want is hundreds of people bothering them, right? And then also to remain legal. Doing password resets or active activities there would could break the law depending on your region, right, where you live. But yeah, so we don't do that. We don't allow that. If people do that, and I'll show you the rules in a minute, they're immediately disqualified and probably banned for life, right? We don't want to interfere with an ongoing investigation either, right? So a lot of missing persons could have some criminal activity, or they could have just an investigation ongoing. And so we don't want to interfere with that. If we do, or if we are even, if it even looks like maybe we are, then we're of no value to law enforcement anymore. So we want to continue to make sure that we're not doing that. And low risk to contestants, right? So when I was first looking at this idea, I was working with hackers around the world. Some, I didn't even know who they really were, and they would tell me about the things they were doing. And some of them were doing some pretty amazing, I don't know what the right word is, dangerous things, and were getting killed in certain parts of the world, right? So because of the way they would do things. And so we don't want that, right? We never want people to have any sort of risk if they're participating their time for free. And so that's why we don't care who you are, right? You can use an alias. We don't need to know your real name. None of that, right? All we care about is the data that you provide. And so we're making that very safe for everyone. And then respect and decency, right? At the end of the day, we're dealing with real people, and we have to have a high level of respect and decency in that, right? As a nonprofit organization trying to do good things, right? That's our scope. And our rules, I'm not going to read all these rules out to you, but, like everything, I would highly recommend you know the rules, because you can quickly get into trouble if you don't know them. They're all common sense rules. I would say some of the main ones that I would focus on is make sure it's passive reconnaissance, right? So zero touch recon. We're not actively hacking the person's account. We're not doing password resets. If you do that, you're going to be in trouble. You could be, you're going to be in trouble from us because you're going to be disqualified and banned, but you could be in legal problems as well, right? So, yeah, OSINT equals passive, right? Thank you. So that's my number one thing I would highlight. The other thing is don't submit OSINT from lists or from sites that are kind of blacklisted, we call it, right? That includes news sites, missing person sites, and law enforcement sites. Why? Well, because they already have that information. You can find the same information on other sites. Like if you go to a forum and you find the same information, you can submit that. And the reason is that you might find additional details there, right? But don't just send us the missing person site, because that's what we're using to show you what we're looking for. So, you create this circle then. So don't do that. And then what else? Yeah, just look through that. Recommendation number one is know the rules. Like everything else, right? Spend some time looking at that. And then next, preparation. Everybody rolls their eyes when I talk about this in real life, right? But really, it's such a huge component for this. In search and rescue, I spend hours going through my gear. I'm continually looking at my gear as the seasons change. I'm swapping things out, making sure my pack is as light as possible. I changed my battery strategy from AA's to USB bricks, right? To consolidate. I'm continually going through that. And then, excuse me, my voice sometimes goes crazy. There we go. So the time to prepare is I would say 10 times, if not more, the actual event, right? So when I go on a task, it could be anywhere from an hour to a day, but preparing is just so many hours. So really, I would recommend, if you want to do well in any event, whether it's a CTF or anything else, prepare for it. And that includes your environment. What's that going to look like? Are you going to have snacks? Snacks are super important. Your laptop, which one are you going to use? Are you going to use a VM? What tools are you going to use? Are you going to have your VPN set up? Don't try to do those the day of, because you're going to waste so much time. Sock puppets, the care and feeding that goes into that, It's not something you can necessarily just flash up in 5 minutes unless you're super skilled. Teams, roles, how are you going to function, right? And what's your overall strategy, right? Think about all those things. You can not do that, but the teams that do that do really well, right? So I would invest in that. And then let's get into categories. I'm going to go through all the categories starting from the easiest to the most difficult. Can you say something more about sock puppets? I'm completely new to this. Yeah, so sock puppets, I could talk about an hour just on those, but essentially that's like a fake account that you have that allows you some privacy from who you're looking for, rather than looking at their accounts with your true account. It gives you a level of distance there. Not That's like a really brief description of that. If anyone's got a better one, please drop it in the comments there. Um, it's not necessary for our CTF, although a lot of people do it. Other things you can do is just set up your account in certain ways so that it's not as visible. Like LinkedIn allows you to do that, or it used to anyway. Um, but for what we do, right, this passive reconnaissance, I find it. I mean, it's not required. A lot of professionals will do that, and there's platforms out there now. I think some of our sponsors even that allow you to set that up very easily. But historically, it was a Facebook account that you created that wasn't you, that was all fake, and that had a bunch of details in it that made it look like a real person. And it required a lot of care and feeding. So, yeah, there's a lot of great videos out there on YouTube you can take a look at. Um, at a high level, how does TraceLab select missing person cases or CTFs, and are they local or international? Great question. So, the best case scenario is law enforcement gives them to us. So in this CTF, we have some from, at least one from law enforcement. The other ones we select. And if it's a global, we try to collect global missing persons. If it's a local CTF, we do localized ones. So that's kind of how we do it. We get them from law enforcement, though. We don't take them from anyone else. So if someone sends us an email and says, hey, this person's missing, it's like, thanks, go to your local law enforcement. And then if they advertise it, we'll look for them. So we only look for ones where the law enforcement says we're seeking the public's help. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about Facebook. You'd have to take a look at that. I don't spend a lot of time with sock puppets myself, although I know a lot of people in our community do. So, yeah, on categories, friends is the easiest one, I would say. It's worth 10 points, and it's a great pivot point. Make sure you're getting relevant friends. If you send 100 friends just from the Facebook list that they have, your coach will probably start rejecting all of them, right? So make sure that when you submit friends, you put some relevancy into the description, because otherwise it'll probably get rejected after the first couple, right? Um, Things like their history of activities together, whether that be travel, crime, running away, whatever, best friend, right? Talked recently before they went missing. And this case here is a good one, super tragic, really, really sad. But there's this huge amount of peripheral content there around her different friends, right? Stuff, right? But tons of it. So if you're thinking about like how do I score points for friends, that's a good example to take a look at. Whenever I get stuck on a subject, I'm looking at their friends and family, right? Like that's my go-to. So low points, but it can give you some pivot points and some direction. Employment, this was really to understand where do they get their money. So whenever I'm doing something like this, that's one of my questions is um, patterns of life is I need to sustain myself and be able to buy food. And to do that, I need money. So how am I getting my money? And there's always a way, right? So you can list their employer. Oh yeah, he works at Walmart. Great, that's fine. Or he's a drug dealer, right? That's also employment. And so that's what we're looking at there. And usually you can't get too many of these because they don't necessarily have a lot of employment. But again, it can help you pivot, right? Who are their coworkers? Maybe that can, give you some direction as well. Um, so take a look at that. Those are pretty easy ones to do. Don't spam those, otherwise your coach will start to reject some of them, right? Make sure they're relevant. Family, again, probably a little less than friends, but family, can give you some really good insights into what's going on. If they're missing, the mom or dad is probably going to be online asking for the public's help, giving some details together. And so you can usually list those people as well as others. And sometimes the missing person will actually go to one of their family members to stay with them. And so that could even lead to location, right? This checklist here is helpful. I find you can check that out. Gives you some oversight into even more detail than I've listed here. But again, I'm looking for a history of activities together, patterns of life, right? Just make sure it's relevant. Again, these are pretty easy. If you find their social media, you're going to find their family and friends. Basic subject info, and I like this one a lot. It's 50 points. And this really is all about give me their social media profiles, give me their Facebook, give me their Twitter, give me their LinkedIn, give me all those, right? And one bit of caution here, which I'm going to say over and over, a bit like a broken record, is make sure it's the correct one, right? So this is quite often your starting point. Oh, thanks very much for the case link there. Case is awesome. Thanks a lot, Vance. That's great. Um, yeah, so it's often your starting point here with basic, right? It's like, oh, I found their Facebook, it's the same name. Yeah, but is it the same person? Because sometimes it's not, right? And it's really interesting. If you go Google yourself with your name, you're going to find a bunch of people that have your name and probably look similar to you, right? That's just the way the world is now. I did that for myself and I was amazed. And it's true of most people, right? Just because it has the same name doesn't mean it's the same person. So really spend time when you're putting this category in, probably as one of your first submissions, is it the right person? Because if it's not, you're going to spend 4 hours submitting details on the wrong person, which feels pretty bad at the end of the day. I had a event that I was at in person, and the person had a location. I think it was a location. It was a really high scoring one, and they came up to me and they said, "Why did you reject this?" And I said, "Because it's the wrong person." And they were like, "No, it's not. We've just spent 4 hours collecting all the details on this person." I'm like, take a look. And then I even went to the next step and we had a coach's team of 4 go through it as well. And they're like, yeah, that's not the person. Looked like the person, same name as the person, not the person. So yeah, sorry, I'm gonna talk about that a couple times today because it happens a lot. And so just make sure, like, and some things you can do is it the same username? Is it the same name? Is it the same location, right? Is it the same friends? Is it the same, like, same picture? Picture's a great one, right? If you can do that. But really spend some time verifying that. Advanced, my all-time favorite category. I really like this one. It's a good amount of points, and you're going to get a lot of these, right? If you're doing this right. Unique identifiers is really what we're looking for. And what this started off with was a lot of people that go missing get kind of pulled away from society, get put on drugs, and then get put into prostitution, which is super evil and just such a terrible existence for those people, right? And so they get put on these underground sites and their faces get blurred and they get pushed into prostitution. And the only way then to identify them and pull them back out of that hell is through unique identifiers, right? And being able to tell law enforcement, like, hey, that's so and so based off of that unique identifier. So that's what this was all about. It has evolved a little bit from that. And so now we look at many more things, license plates, medical issues, prescriptions. Those are really good, actually. Type of assets that they have. Um, yeah, and recommendation of foundation of basic often follows a lot of opportunities for advanced. Yeah, for sure. So if you find their Facebook page, you're going to find a bunch of advanced submissions there just waiting for you to submit, right? We had one license plate where it led to the location of a person. So that can be super powerful. Day last seen, 300 points, a lot of points, a little more, well, actually quite a bit more difficult to get, right? So what we're looking for here is relevant information regarding the subject on the day they went missing, not the week before, on the day. And so you'll see in the missing person pages or law enforcement site, it'll have some of this. Don't link to that as your source because it'll get rejected, right? Because that's one of the 3 that we don't accept. Find it somewhere else, you will, and you can send that in and get 300 points, right? And hopefully you're going to find something we don't already have. Day last seen can be very powerful. It can give you some even higher categories as well. So take a look at that. Usually it's like what they were wearing, where they were headed, state of mind, stuff like that. So take a look at that. Mm. Advancing the timeline, 700 big points. I have a love-hate relationship with this category, to be honest. I've never really been a huge fan of it because it's 700 points. And when somebody gets this on the scoreboard, it just like breaks the scoreboard, right? Because they go poo way up there. And yeah, it's super annoying for me because then I got to go look and go, what happened and justify it and do the due diligence and make sure that it's legit. And usually they are. But it just freaks me out every time. So maybe it's just me. But it's a good one, right? Like it advances the timeline. So it shows us some activity by the missing person after they went missing, which is what we're looking for. It's hard to find. I find that sometimes there's mistakes with this where it's actually not after they went missing or it's not actually them. So there's some of those things. Sometimes family will take over their social media after they go missing to try to help find them. So there's things like that that you got to watch out for. But we're looking for, social media activity, account creation, maybe aliases after they went missing, and tags, things like that. Anything that you can find, but ensure it took place after they went missing and that it was actually them. So that's something to watch out for there. But yeah, 700 points. If you can get some of those, and winning teams do, right? They that's huge. What's TL stance on downloading leaked databases to confirm the email addresses? Yeah, so breach data, stuff like that, totally fine to do because it's not, it's publicly available, so you could download that. The tricky part there is you can't just submit that because there's no link to it, right? Well, you could submit that, I guess, and highlight the email. Yeah, so that would work, and I've seen that before, but and then you have their email address. So then you're going to be able to utilize that as a search and automate that. So yeah, if that answers your question. So yeah, I do remember seeing that. Oops, crap, that surprised me. My phone fell. Uh, so yeah, that would work. Hopefully that answers your question. Um, yeah, confirming the email allows you to then do automated search, which is great. Location. Did I do this one already? No, I didn't do this one. Dark web. Sorry, I'm jumping around all over. Dark web, 1,000 points. We don't use this anymore. The idea behind this was that a lot of stuff where people were trafficked was put on the dark web. And the idea was if we could find it, we could help law enforcement. The problem is that the submissions from dark web just didn't work. They were too hard to validate, and it was just a mess. So we don't use this anymore. The team's going to remove this from the platform in the future. And so this will go away. So just don't use this category. And my apologies for having it still in the system. I know it's confusing. Nobody uses it. So just ignore it. Maybe sometime in the future we can figure out how to make that work. And then the big one, 5,000 points, location. So what we're looking for here is if I went there right now, the subject would be there. And it's really difficult, of course, but not impossible. And we have had some of these. We've had some of these with law enforcement in the room, which has been great. They've been able to validate right with us. These are some possible scenarios, but I have to say every single one of these is been quite different. And it's really exciting when this happens because they're always different and we're always kind of figuring it out on the day. Um, and these probably aren't the best examples. Online gaming, current activity, and a valid IP address, which points to an address um, that could be validated by law enforcement going to that address. Picture taken yesterday by the missing person's cousin showing the missing person in their home. So they've gone to the cousin's home and can be ascertained by the picture, ascertained that the picture was recently taken. Yeah, so that could, right? Multiple posts indicating their location. Yeah. A rough guess won't really be accepted. So if you're like, well, I think they're there, be careful with that sort of verbiage, right? And I'll talk about that in a minute. We need some supporting details that would kind of prove or give us a high confidence. That's the best way to put it. A high confidence that they're there, right? And it doesn't have to be an address even. It could be, yeah, we believe they're in this general area, right? Even that could get you location. So Once you submit location, what happens is the coach then looks at that, tries to make sense of it. If it looks good, it then moves to a bit of a committee review to make sure, because 5,000 points is a lot. You're probably going to win if you get location. And so we want to make sure we get that right and that we're very fair in that. Okay. All right. So those are the categories, and hopefully that helps you out a little bit with that. Now I'm going to talk about how we actually process your submissions. And so because we're a non-theoretical CTF, so you submit, and instead of us knowing the right answer, and it automatically telling you if you're right or wrong, it goes into the queue, and you have a coach, a human person that's assigned to your team and probably other teams as well, that is going to look at all your submissions. So your submissions don't automatically show up on the scoreboard. There's a slight delay that where the coach is trying to keep up with you and other teams to validate what you've submitted is correct, right? Is relevant, is when they click the link, they can see the data, right, as well, and all of that. So it does take a little bit of time as the CTF progresses. They fall behind inevitably a little bit, so it could take, up to an hour sometimes if we're super busy. So there is a slight delay. Usually it's pretty quick, but because we keep an eye on that, we try to load balance our coaches as best as possible. We have all level of coaches, right? So we have brand new people all the way up to people that have done this dozens of times, and we try to match teams up with appropriate coaches. 99% of the coaches do a great job, right? And so huge thanks to the coaches. Um, I find in almost every instance, they really want you to win. They want to help you to win, right? And they're gonna, if you ask them a question, they're gonna give you a good answer. And they're generally interested in making sure everybody has the best experience possible. They may reject some of your submissions, but hopefully they're going to give you details on why they did reject it, right? Um, is it a good idea to change the role so everyone gets a chance and the view is changing? I don't fully follow that. So if you can give me a little more detail, hopefully I can answer that question. Yeah, just drop some more detail in there because I'm not quite following that. Um, Yeah, coaches have more information than you. So just know that because they have multiple teams, they're seeing more than you. So if they reject one of your submissions, they probably have good reason to do so. Like maybe it's the Facebook page. You're like, hey, this is them. And they're like, no, it's not. They probably know what the correct Facebook page is, right? They're not going to give it to you, but they can assure you that that's not it, right? So there's things like that. So and feel free to ask them too, right? You can do that. Um, if you really have a problem with your coach, you can escalate and we can help out. But generally, they're really good. Um, yeah, let's go to the next one. Okay, so let's get into some techniques here. We're going to start with a strong foundation. So I talked about this earlier, but please, please, please make sure the person you're submitting data on is the person we're looking for, right? So many times I see that. And I'm a broken record because I see it so many times, and it's always really brutal for the team that's doing that, right? Mm, name is not enough. If it's the same picture, then that's generally a really good sign. But I would look for a few other indicators, right? And as you progress, keep thinking to yourself, is this really the person? Because you should see more and more indicators that, yeah, it's the person, right? Location, email, same photos, same friends, right? Same employment, all of those things. Just keep validating yourself, right? So this is my first CTF. What information do we usually start with? Just name and photo. Yeah, so we will provide a link to the missing persons page from law enforcement, and that will give you usually a photo of them, their name, their location, where they went missing, their age, their height, their weight, their description, all of that sort of stuff. Um, oh yeah, so I'm going to talk about roles in a minute. Yeah, great question. Yeah, I'm gonna get there. You're on to something there for sure. That as a winning strategy, you definitely want to have your roles dialed in. So, um, yeah, so I talked about this a little bit already. We're not web sleuths, we're intelligence operators. So if you start using language like this, especially in your submissions, just be aware of that and think, okay, like if I'm saying this, that means I don't know, right? And if you don't know, that means you're guessing. So don't theorize, show logical correlation and relevancy. So, okay, this is their Facebook page, probably, as opposed to this is their Facebook page because it's got the same name, same location, it's the same picture as the missing person profile, and their mother has said they've gone missing. So it's probably them, right? Very high confidence that it's them. That's way better than it might be them, or this could be what we're looking for. If you're using that language, your submissions will probably get rejected, right? So just be careful of that. Valid sources, again, those three sites are not permitted. You will find the same data in other sites though. So um, you can take those details and find them elsewhere and you'll find even more detail, right? So keep an eye on that. Um, a lot of people will submit these, then they get rejected, then they wonder why. So I do bring it up several times in this webinar. Documentation and collaboration, huge, right? And this is similar to being prepared. I talk about that a lot, and it's boring, I know, but this will help you a lot. And so when I'm out in the field, it's usually pouring down rain, it's usually the middle of the night. I have a waterproof booklet that I use and a special pen to track stuff. I use my phone a little bit, but my environment's kind of harsh that way. So whatever you want to do is fine, but I would recommend you do it. And whether that be an electronic notepad of some type, a collaboration app, a whiteboard, a notepad, like whatever you want to do, whatever works for you. If you've got everybody in the same room, maybe use a whiteboard. I don't know. Um, but I would say do something. So staying organized as an individual by documenting. So what am I working on? What have I already done? What am I going to do next? What did I find? What direction am I going in, right? That can help you. But then also sharing that, collaborating with your team on that as well, right? And gentleman here asked about roles. That's a great thing for everybody to know. Like, what's our role? Who's doing what? Are you doing this case and I'm doing that case, right? So really understanding that. And in tracking, we call it tracking picture. It helps you to understand your missing person. That's really what I'm trying to document is what's the picture I'm drawing here of this person. And yeah, so I would do this in some fashion. How you do it is up to you. But it really, really helps. And winning teams do this. I'm just going to read some questions here. Do we get guided questions throughout each case? No. All you get is the case. And it's like, okay, this is the case. This is the person we're looking for. Then you go forward and begin looking for that person. You don't get any guided questions or any guidance at all, actually, from us. Your coach can tell you whether your submission is accepted or not. And then if it is not, why not? But other than that, it's up to you to run the operation as you see fit, as long as you follow all the rules. The MVO winners of the last CTF won due to their extraordinary documenting technique. Yeah, absolutely, right? So people that are really good at OSINT become very well organized. And I find if you want to be good at anything, get organized, right? Like, period. Um, so it definitely helps a lot. So however you want to do it, because everybody does it different. I'm a little old school. I do a combination of things. But yeah, I would try to figure that out. And I think that having a system where you can collaborate very quickly with your team members, especially if you're not all in the same room. Um, may I ask what made the technique so extraordinary? Um, yeah, maybe others can answer that while I'm going forward, but otherwise I'll get to that near the end. I think that just the level of detail from how I remember it was really good. Their level of detail was great, but I can't remember what apps they used or anything like that, so maybe somebody else will. Um, how quickly did the CTF tickets sell out? Within hours usually. Um, waves targets throughout the day. So we usually do four subjects, and we usually put them all out at once, unless there's a problem with one of the subjects, like they were found or something else. Um, can you have your own team with a coach? No, you'll get a coach assigned to your team. Um, so yeah, I would say, how do you simulate a CTF? Do OSINT on yourself. So type in your name and start doing OSINT on yourself based off of the categories that I just went through. I think that's a great way to practice. Has TraceLab ever shared an example of how they structured an investigation during a CTF? Um, there's a ton of great tools out there. I would say look at our sponsors. Honestly, like, they're some of the best sponsors, best organizations out there in the OSINT industry. And yeah, we've had a lot of people approach us to be sponsors, and we're a little selective that way. But the ones we work with are all very good. But honestly, you don't need a lot of tools for what we're doing, right? You could do all of this manual, and it would be no problem. And some of the winning teams are very manual. So, but no, we don't. We do blog posts. So on our site, you'll see some blog posts where we talk about some of the activity, and some of the winning teams also do write-ups on there as well. One of my favorite techniques is reuse. I love, love, love reuse, right? And like, it's my go-to thing. And so if you have their username, if you have their picture, that's golden, right? Like, just that's a great resource to have. We often talk about password reuse. We talk about reusing your password for multiple sites is really bad. And it is. If you don't have a password manager, today's the day. Go out and get one. You won't regret it. If you're using Apple, I use the Apple Password Manager. It's fantastic. But yeah, just go get one. It makes your life so much easier, and it's so much more secure, right? But yeah, so going back to reuse in this instance, username and picture reuse is so good. Not only does it um, really give you a higher confidence that this is the person you're looking for, but you can then use that in some apps to automate the search to find their other profiles on other sites, right? And so it's really good. So if you've got that, which you will have, uh, you can reuse it. Email reuse as well. If you've got their email, which you will probably find as well, you can do that same thing with that. And there's tons of apps out there you can use for that. If I use the VPN, it will include all the tools I need or not. Well, it depends on what you need. Using VPN is a nice convenience to be able to show up somewhere else, as well as for privacy, kind of multifunction that way for our purposes. But it's not required or needed, I would say. But a lot of people do it. Um, when can I access the team matching channel? I would say now. If anybody knows the channel, please drop it in the chat. I don't remember it offhand. Virtual machine, VM. Yeah, VM's great. It's especially if you're doing this as a business or as a profession, I would say get familiar with using VMs. Um, but make sure that's set up now, not on the day of, right? Um, more techniques. So look for interactions rather than just social media sites. So once you find their Facebook page or their social media, I'm looking for, what are they doing on there? And I really like forums or chats, because they're often more specific and focused, right? They'll talk about what their plans are, what they're trying to do, right? That sort of stuff. Examples of that are, Reddit, travel forums. I love gaming forums, that sort of stuff. So finding online interactions, way higher value than just their Facebook page. I mean, their Facebook page is a good start, but then I want to know, like, what are they doing? Who are they? What's their plan? What are they all about? What's their patterns of life, right? Regional opportunities. This one's a little bit nuanced, right? Social media platforms can provide a good base depending on your region. There are bigger opportunities, and this one is interesting. So in Canada, I'll tell you my story. In Canada, I can find your court appearances. That's public information. So if you know where to look, I can find out if you were charged with something, what your court date was, where you went to court, how that went, what your aliases are, who else was involved, all of those details, right? Which is really helpful for what we do. And because quite often there's some criminal activity for missing persons, right? Inevitably, I find, not all, of course, but quite a few. So that, for me, where I live, that's what I often look at. But for you, it may be different. I know in the US, it's even, I think, more, you'll have more opportunities. In Europe, you'll have less. Uh, other areas that I would look at. I'm really excited about property. I love that because, as I mentioned, for under careers or employment, everybody needs money to survive, but I find everybody also really values their assets. And it doesn't have to be physical assets. It can also be virtual assets. People love their gaming stuff, right? Whether they have an achievement on Steam or something like that, they love that, and so they're going to see that, or you're gonna find that quite often, right? Wearables, I also like that. We don't see a lot of that. I did see some Strava activity, I think, in the last CTF, which I was super excited about. But we all wear these, right? They all transmit to the cloud, and we're not all locked down that way. So I think if you're looking for location, having somebody transmit their location to you with their wearable, I mean, to me, that would be the ultimate, right? So I am excited to find that sort of stuff. But think about your region. Take a look, talk to your OSINT communities in your region about that, and find out what's available for you. For me, it's the court appearances. They're golden. They gave me so much information. And then kind of falling back on my tracking experience when I'm doing OSINT, and I have a whole talk about this actually, so I'm just going to hit this real quick. Um, the type of person you're looking for, right, usually falls into one of these buckets, and it can be more than one to make it more complicated, and they can also transition from one to the other, which they always do. But if you can understand where they are right now, that will allow you to better focus on where to look and where they might be, right? So a lot of people, runaways, then go homeless. Sometimes, unfortunately, they move into human trafficking, natural causes. We don't see that very often, but people are often displaced because of that. Mental health, they often don't have money, so then they do criminal activity, things like that. So see all of these, right? And understanding which one they are will allow you to better understand what to look for, right? So keep that in mind. I'm always thinking about that when I'm tracking somebody, is like, okay, what type of person am I looking for? Especially if I think they're going to be violent. That's a big factor for me. Um, we won't know where the missing person is from, as it can be from, this is a global CTF. Yeah, this is global. The next one we're doing in February, so they could be from anywhere. Good point. Track your subject. Utilize patterns of life. So again, falling back on my tracking, as a digital tracker, you want to do what we call cut sign in order to save time. So cutting sign is where you're like, okay, they're moving in this direction, so therefore I'm going to assume they're going to appear up here somewhere, right? If they're heading north, I'm going to send a team 1 mile up and cut them off, right? Or save a bunch of time because tracking is slow. OSINT is slow. So social media will provide you insights into their lifestyle and intent. That's what I'm often looking for, that word intent. Use this information to figure out where am I going to go look next, right? And it goes back to what type of person are they? Are they a criminal? Do they exercise? Are they traveling? Traveling is a big one, right? Are they a gamer? Go look at Steam, stuff like that. What games do they like to play? Things like that. So really understanding your subject to anticipate their intent will allow you to really figure out where am I going to go look. And then geolocation. This one to me is really exciting, and this could really help you in the CTF. When you're looking at pictures of the subject or where the subject was, to be able to look at the picture and go, oh yeah, that's Brazil, or oh yeah, that's Miami, right? That's super helpful. And you can learn those skills. I mean, I put some links here to some of the YouTubers that do this, and they will do contests where they do a picture and then they spend an hour figuring out where it is. And they talk about the signage, the streets, the cars, the plants, everything, the shadows, to figure out where it is. And I think it's a great skill to develop if you're into OSINT. So there's a bunch of sites that you can find details on this. If you just go on YouTube and type geolocation and OSINT, you'll find a bunch of really good resources. So take a look at that. But I think if you can incorporate that into your CTF, that can help you score points really well. So check that out. And then finally, reverse image search, being able to say how high a confidence you are that the picture is actually the missing person. Um, this will help you to make sure that the person you're looking for is actually the right person, right? There's some tools there you can use. There's a bunch of other tools out there. At the time of putting this together, those were some of the more popular tools. But the reverse image search, for those of you that don't know, it really kind of takes a picture and tries to figure out is that the right person or not, right? Based on the next picture you find. So if you've got the missing person picture, and then you found their let's say Facebook page with another picture, you can plug those both into the system. It'll say, okay, it's a 90% chance that that's the same person, right? Which is a pretty good percentage. And then you can use that in your submission to say, oh, it's 90% sure, rather than I think it might be them, right? Which is a bit weak. Yeah, so check that out. And yeah, that I just blasted through a lot of that. I was worried about the time, but we have 6 minutes left. So I'm going to take a look at the questions here. Would you share a copy of this PowerPoint? Yeah, I think I will. I'll talk to the team about that, putting it up as a PDF or something. It changes a fair bit. It didn't change over the last one though, so maybe we can just post it. Um, let's see, what else do we got here? Yeah, it's going to be global. So we'll have 4 subjects and they'll be from around the world. Um, even I don't know where they're going to be from just yet. So can you go back to the family page? Yeah, you got it. Let's see, where was that? Categories, friends, employment, family. There it is. The roles. You want to talk about the roles? Yeah, I don't know why I didn't talk about the roles. I must have burned through that somewhere. But generally, for the roles, I would talk to your team of 4 about, and if you have less than 4 people, that's fine. Some people do very well with like 1 or 2 people. I think one of the winning teams last time was only 1 person. Talk about who's doing what. So you're going to have 4 subjects that you're going to work on. Are you all focused on the same subject? Or are you going to do, spread it out so you're all focused on different subjects? Are some of you going to do the easy points and some of you going to do the hard points depending on your skill set within OSINT? So who's doing what? And I find that it's going to work. I'm not going to tell you what to do there because it's going to really depend on your teams and your skill levels and stuff like that. But, one technique might be to start off by just doing all the easy points on all 4 subjects, kind of figuring out, okay, which ones do we like? Because some are going to be hard and some are going to be easy. Inevitably, that's how it always works out. You have 4 subjects, one person has tons of details out there, the other person has none, and everyone else is in between. So figuring out which ones are we going to go deep on and invest our time in. I think for me, that would be one of the first decisions I want to make. So if I have 4 people, everybody take one subject, go as deep as you can for the first half an hour, and then let's see what we find out. Right? That probably would be a technique I would think about. So for roles, that's what you could do. And then after that, you reevaluate and go, okay, who's doing what? But you also want to know what have you already submitted as a team and understand what that looks like so you're not doing duplicates. How are local CTFs organized? Would there be like 4 missing persons assigned to each team? There's 4 subjects in total, and everybody's submitting information on those same 4 subjects. You don't get to see what other teams have submitted for due to security, but everybody's submitting the same thing. Um, Oh, sorry, I got a bit of allergies, I think. How are local CTFs organized, and are these postings for missing persons CTFs for certain cities somewhere like New York City and LA? We basically usually work with conferences, security conferences, to do our CTF in these different cities. One of the last ones we did was Paris at La Hack. I did one in, where was it? Oh, I forget, darn it. uh, Bucharest, I think it was, in 2024. But yeah, we do them all over. We usually do like 1 or 2 a year, actually, right now. How and when does it all get back to law enforcement? So right after we're done, the reporting team gets together, they take all the data, they filter it and organize it appropriately, do a nice concise cover page, and then we send it to law enforcement directly. Usually that's very quickly after our CTF. We used to have a little bit of a delay when we didn't have so many people helping with that, which was a problem. But now the team is just amazing, and they get it done super quick, which is great. And it only goes to law enforcement. We don't give it to anyone else. We don't give it to the family. We don't give it to media. We don't give it to private investigators. If they want it, they have to go to the law enforcement agency that's running that case. And that's really for privacy, safety, and respect, right? How and when does, yeah, let's see. If the CTFs sell out so quickly, are more people joining the search parties really what you need most right now, or do you actually need more coaches? Um, yeah, coaches are always welcome. And if you want to be a coach, get on our Discord, and there's channels for that. But and coaching is a great thing to do as well because it allows you to have some really good visibility into how teams operate, and that's a great experience to have, and it'll help you as a contestant as well. A lot of people go from contestant to junior coach, they help out a little bit, and then they move to a senior coach and they help other coaches, and it kind of evolves that way. But you could you know, actually I would suggest starting off as a contestant first, because if you're not a contestant first, it's hard to be a coach, right? But I would then say, yeah, if you want to do coaching soon afterwards, we always need coaches. Is it better for me to join the event solo or just to understand the CTF like this, or is it better to join a team even though I don't know how much I can help? And I would say for sure join a team for multiple reasons. I mean, if you can't find people, then just do it yourself. That's rewarding as well. Excuse me. But the thing about joining a team is you're going to meet some new people, and not only that, some new friends, but you're going to learn some stuff from them. And I would say probably have more fun, and I think that's part of it. And so I would always recommend that getting on Discord, saying hello. Are there any teams looking for somebody out there? Regardless of your skill set and experience, I would say that it's you can always be of help, right? A four-person team is always going to be more powerful than a single person, I would say. So yeah, and it's so much more fun working with others, right? Um, what is the content of another level 200 and 300? So that's in development right now. But I think you'll see more, yeah, in the upcoming months. I'll be presenting in Croatia in May on one of my talks. It's the comparison between physical tracking and OSINT, and I'll be doing that. I might be doing that here at some point virtually as well, but I know we have got a lot of other great content coming out. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. Yeah, any other questions at all? Oh, it's awesome to see some people finding teams already. That's great. Well, let me know how it goes with the CTF. Has anybody already bought their tickets for the CTF? Because I believe they're on sale now. So yeah, okay, you got them already. As a beginner, what is the best way to get my foot in the door on OSINT career certifications, building a portfolio? Yeah, good question. A lot of people come through Trace Labs and then start their career in OSINT and information security in general. I think doing this sort of activity shows an employer that you're really interested and that you're putting, investing your time in this. I think for certifications, Michael Bazel's got some great resources. There's some new OSINT specific certs out there. I think just for the information security industry in general, the CISSP is still kind of like the gold standard that I see out there. I've done that myself. If you're going to do that, look at the brain dump um, questions and answers out there. Those are pretty much the exact same as what's in the exam. Um, there's other ones out there like CISM. I think I did that one, same sort of thing. Um, but yeah, volunteer activity always looks good on a resume. So it's helped a lot of people. Oh yeah, great. Thanks, Vance. Yeah, Michael Bazel's great. Look at our sponsors too. They all have some really good materials. I say that, and I'm not just pumping our sponsors. Like they all are really good. I know a lot of them personally, and they're all wonderful people, really trying to do good work, and their stuff is really legit. Oh, thanks, Diago. We'll check into that. All right. Any other questions at all? Can I join a team on the same day of the event? I created a team when I registered thinking I would do solo. Yeah, I believe you can. Because when other people sign up, I believe they can pick the team they want, right? You can either start a new team or join a team. Are missing people at risk people or suspects? We don't know, I guess is the short answer to that. We generally shy away from suspects. Law enforcement generally has a higher interest in criminal activity, um, but we try to shy away from that. So we don't go out there looking for criminal activity when we're selecting subjects. What we usually look for are safe subjects because we don't really want to get pulled into criminal investigations. And so we that's kind of but we don't actually know, right? Very often there's criminal activity in missing persons one way or another. And so we just try to make things as safe as possible for everybody. So if the CTF is sold out, there may be more tickets coming available shortly. I'm not promising, but that may happen. So I would just keep watching our social media, stay in our Discord, watch for news, and then once you see that, that may be your opportunity. So just keep. It does sell out very quickly. Yeah, not helping ice. We don't really we only have connections to the law enforcement agency that is advertising the missing person. And so it's never like an immigration thing for us, right? It's just like they're missing and we want to help find them. It's an interesting question though, right? Because it kind of begs the question of, okay, well, do people want to be found? And we have to kind of trust law enforcement that the answer is yes. So an example of that, and I'm getting a little philosophical here, so please give me the margin there. It's we there was one where we had a gentleman who went missing, and we I think we helped locate that person. The reason they were missing was because they wanted to reinvent their life because they didn't want to pay child support anymore, right? And so the question is, well, should we have helped law enforcement find them? And I think most people would say yes to that, right? Although it is kind of marginal, right? And I agree. There's times where it's like maybe we don't, but I haven't found one yet where I was like, yeah, no, we should not have done that. But we're always being very careful of that because we don't want to put anybody at risk. We don't want to. The idea here is for us to provide value to everyone in law enforcement, the missing person, the families, yourselves, right, through different means. So we never want to cause harm is a big thing for us. So we are kind of monitoring that and discussing that. Yeah, but so far so good. It's been amazing actually how helpful the organization's been, right, on multiple levels for people. So it's been pretty good that way. But these sort of questions are something that we talk a lot about. All right. Anything else at all? And I'm always available if you have a question. Don't get mad at me if I don't respond right away, but I will do my best to get back to you. And as well, like the community on Discord is just fantastic and super responsive as well. How many CTFs does TraceLab organize per year? So generally four globals. One every quarter is what we try to do. There was a point in time where we were doing them every month and we were burning out. And so now it's generally every quarter. And the new team that we have, the new leadership and the new teams are just so good. The last one we did was unbelievably well organized, and yeah, it just blew me away. And every time they're getting better and better. So, but generally every 4 months, every quarter. Plus, we may have some small ones at local events and things like that. Um, Yeah, good, good. I'm glad this was helpful. It is quite different than your typical CTF. And so just keep that in mind as a non-theoretical. That's going to be the biggest change, right? Is that delay while a real person looks at your submission. So have patience, work with your coach. Your coach is, in my opinion, it's like the fifth person of your team. They're not going to give you the answers, but they definitely will help you to be more successful. So give them respect and kindness, and they will definitely do the same, right? We've got a lot of our coaches are just amazing as well. So great community of people. Good, good. I'm glad it was helpful. Yeah, you're gonna have a great time. It's a lot of fun. It's very, very draining, right? So it's a very intense 4 hours. So make sure you have snacks, make sure you hydrate, and have a lot of fun. You're gonna meet some great people, and yeah. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad this was helpful. So yeah, have a great time. I'm looking forward to hearing how it went for you guys. Yeah, exactly. Great, great picture. I love that. All right. Well, unless there's nothing else, we'll shut down for today. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate meeting all of you, and look forward to seeing you on the CTF. All right. Okay. Bye, everybody.